Okay, sorry, I had some. I had to.
Things seem to have gone quiet.
Yes, I thought it was me for a second.
Sorry, Paula, go ahead. I have another meeting at the same time. So sorry. You can start with the meeting.
Great. Okay. So, hello, everybody. Let me just start my slideshow here.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm Paula Kelly, and I've been kindly invited to take this opportunity to present on a number of research topics that might be of interest to this group by Jorge, and thank you for that. And I'm joined by three of my colleagues who will each present on their topics that we believe will be of interest to this network. So first of all, we have my colleague, Dr. Dempna O'Sullivan, and Dempna is going to present on age-friendly for dementia. And then I'll be joined by my colleague, Emma Clark, Dr. Emma Clark, and myself on presenting on our age-friendly AI initiative. And finally, my colleague, Dr. Damon Burry, will present on an EU project called Hands-on Chafe that a number of us completed together as under Erasmus funding. So we'd be delighted to take questions and answers at any stage. What we're proposing is that each of us will present for 20 minutes, and then we have 10, 15 minutes of questions and answers on any of these topics that you'd like to discuss further. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dempna now.
Thanks, Paula. I will just need to, share my screen. Okay. I need to go. Now, can you all see my screen, the slides there, Paula?
Yes, great.
Right. So again, thanks to Jose and the entire group for the opportunity to present some of the work we're doing in TU Dublin. I work on this project with a large team at TU Dublin, including Damon, who will present at the end. And what we've been working on for quite a number of years now, which has been funded by the national funder here in Ireland, Research Ireland. We've been working on developing assistive technologies to support persons with age-related cognitive impairments to live independently at home. So we've adopted a very much a co-design approach to that, where we work in a collaborative and participatory way with persons with dementia, their informal carers and healthcare professions and older and aging organizations in the community. But I suppose one of the things that the project was originally called Co-Design for Dementia, but through our participatory work, I suppose we see that there's much larger population of people rather than those with just dementia diagnosis that could benefit from assistive technologies to support independent living at home. And that's people, with dementia, with mild cognitive impairment, but just people who have concerns about their memory as they age as well. So a little bit of, I suppose, background on dementia. There's more than 55 million people worldwide are living with a dementia diagnosis, and there are 10 million cases diagnosed every year. And this is mostly driven by an aging population, although there are sort of health and lifestyle risks that are associated with age-related cognitive impairments as well. In Ireland, an estimated 64,000 people are living with dementia, and that's expected to almost triple by 2045. But we also know that the condition is widely underdiagnosed. And then, there's a real sort of ecosystem of care around people with age-related cognitive impairments. For every person with dementia, it's estimated that another 3 people support their care. And I'm talking here about informal carers, not formal carers. So, family members, neighbors, and so on. So informal carers for people with age-related cognitive impairments make up about 6% of the Irish population. And I suppose from our research, we see that their needs are frequently very overlooked. And, there's also support is required for that population as well. So I suppose what are some of the societal consequences of this? This is of dementia in particular and age-related cognitive impairments, really around that sort of diminished quality of life and loss of independence. Memory, thinking, daily functioning are progressively affected, and that results in difficulty with daily activities. Sometimes it can result in diminished communication activity, and then increased risk and safety concerns as well. Excuse me. We also know that dementia places a really considerable emotional, but also financial burden on caregivers. People with dementia have a higher utilization of healthcare services than those without. They have prolonged hospital stays, and in most parts of the world, but definitely in Ireland, we have an acute shortage of nursing home beds, with a nursing home bed in Ireland costing about €600 per week. So the cost of dementia in Ireland is about 2 billion annually. And I suppose what we are thinking about is, given the sort of gravity of this situation, we have to really start to think about new and innovative ways, because this is a significant public health challenge. So I suppose internationally, what's happening, most healthcare systems are moving towards a community-based care model. And that really has the aim of enabling people to live independently at home with localized support. And that is cost effective, as I said, but also I suppose what we would say, or we would argue very strongly, is that high quality services, they should be focused on allowing people with age-related cognitive impairments to remain in their home for as long as possible. But the home-based care, it must be accompanied by high quality services, because without the right support, there's a real gap between how people can actually function and how they could potentially function. So we would say that, I suppose what we have seen is, a lot of technology focuses on safety, but it's not really about empowering the person with an age-related cognitive impairment to engage in decision-making about their own care. And, the research does show that people with mild to moderate dementia, they are very capable actors in self-management, and our, I suppose, extensive stakeholder engagement, it would confirm that people with age-related cognitive impairments are very keen to take an active role in their own care, and they often do seek out technology to help them do that. So our premise, I suppose, is that people with age-related cognitive impairments, they should be at the centre of decisions about their care, and that appropriately designed technology can be used to provide proactive support to enable people to self-manage their care at home. So what are the kind of aims of our project? Well, first is to co-design a digital health platform to support people living with age-related cognitive impairments, to self-manage their health and well-being, as well as support for those who care for them. So we're talking there really about their informal carers. And, to ensure that this platform is, not only does it support the family carer in providing care for a person with dementia, but it should also support the family carer to support their own health and well-being, because often what you find is that the informal carer is an older person themselves with their own, their own health issues. So you often end up in this kind of situation where you have 2 patients, and we really do feel like the informal carers are quite overlooked in this space. So we have, I suppose, the preliminary part of our work, we focused on really understanding, I think, lived experiences, challenges and needs. And we have done interviews, focus groups and co-design sessions with 170 different stakeholders. And they are people living with age-related cognitive impairments, they're informal carers, healthcare professionals. I know there's a gerontologist on the call. We've spoken to some gerontologists and staff from aging and dementia charity organisations in the community. So I suppose what are some of the gaps that we have identified from this stakeholder analysis? A real problem, a real fundamental problem, I suppose, if impacting the effective management of dementia is late formal diagnosis. In Ireland, there's often a very long gap. It could potentially be up to 2 years between a person presenting, say, to their GP or some other service with a memory concern and then a formal diagnosis. So as a consequence, there's a lot of missed opportunities for interventions that could ultimately, slow the rate of progression. And we would really see, I suppose, that technology could fill this gap to delay progression by delivering, interventions that can allow a person to self-manage. Many of the services are geared towards older adults and not for those with early onset dementia. And early onset dementia is dementia that onsets when a person is under 65. And that's now about 10% of the dementia population in Ireland. There are a real lack of formal care plans for home care, right? So, there are no care plans. If you go to your GP, you might get something like a printout of a Microsoft file, but there's no kind of care plan to help or to support a person to live at home. They do exist, for example, in nursing homes, but that's a very different, that's a very different stage of the condition. And, the needs, I suppose, of informal carers, they're very poorly understood. And particularly, I think, regarding, education and support for how to care for a person with dementia. There isn't much information on that. And then as well, support for their own well-being. So what we are proposing is that, technology could be an early stage intervention to fill the gap in the delayed provision of services. Because this is how you can sort of slow the progression of, age-related cognitive impairments to mild cognitive impairment and dementia, and then help better manage your systems. So we have developed a technology system, and it's a technology for self-management. And it is about empowering individuals, to take proactive steps in managing their cognitive health. But, from speaking to people, I suppose we also want that technology, to be sensitive to the person. And it's really about, maintaining a sense of purpose and identity, right? That's really important when somebody gets a diagnosis. The dementia often, or a diagnosis around this often, is a real hit to somebody's confidence. They stop engaging in activities, they don't socialize as much. So the technology should be a nudge and a help for people to maintain the activities that they usually engage in. And as I say, the focus really is on delaying progression by delivering relevant interventions and content at the right time. This is another thing we see, that when somebody gets a dementia diagnosis, they're simply overwhelmed with all of the information about dementia, even though it's a long continuum. And information that you would get at the start of a diagnosis of condition is very different to the information that you need 2 years down the road. So, the information that we're presenting to people should be relevant to the condition stage. And as I say, we're doing this using a co-design methodology. So from our requirements, so what are the features of some of this technology? So these are some of our participants in our workshops. So these are the requirements. So one, structured care plan, right? That the person with the age-related cognitive impairment, a care plan that all of the stakeholders can contribute to and access, right? As I say, first of all, information might be provided on kind of one piece of paper, which is often lost or forgotten. And then different services provide different plans. So if you're a person with an age-related cognitive impairment, you could be seeing a physiotherapist, a speech and language therapist, a gerontologist, your GP. So different services all have their own, different plans. So you have to try and remember the outcomes from all these visits and relay them at kind of other visits. And that's difficult even if you don't have a cognitive impairment, right? And it also has an impact on the health professionals. There's no sort of follow-up on referrals. Did the person attend, the physiotherapy? What was the outcome of that? Healthcare professionals spend an awful lot of time on the phone kind of trying to track down information like this. So we propose sort of one plan that would capture much of this. We also say that a care plan is needed for the informal carers. Carers experience stress, they have the burden of care. They need support on how to look after the person, but also, how to look after their own health and well-being. Orientation is a really fundamental aspect for people with age-related cognitive impairments, because that really underpins your ability to feel safe and confident and in control of your daily life. And as the condition progresses, people often lose track of time or place, and that causes distress, and it does reduce your independence. So having kind of continuous, easily accessible cues around orientation, the time, the date, the location, the identity of familiar people, that's something that should be part of the technology. Set goals, so that, what I talked about, maintaining a sense of meaning and purpose. So set goals in relation to activities, so to promote your independence and your agency. Structure and routine are really, really, really important. And to be able to track those goals and to see if they've been completed. And not just, a lot of the work in sort of age-related cognitive impairment talks about activities of daily living and how you should track those. So there are things like eating and hygiene activities and so on. But there should also be support for meaningful activities, the activities that support emotional and, well-being, your hobbies and things like that. So, being able to be reminded to engage in those activities. And if you lose your ability to do some of those meaningful activities, to suggest a replacement activity. So for example, a person was a very keen gardener, but maybe their mobility is impacted, could they do indoor gardening instead, something like that. And then, as I said, that information about education, right? How to live well with dementia, and a kind of progressive disclosure of information as the condition progresses. There's a real need to support psychological well-being. In Ireland, people don't routinely get access to counselling or psychotherapeutic support, even though, with this diagnosis, worry, it has a significant impact on your mental health through anxiety and worry and stress. There's also reports of people not accepting, the diagnosis, and it definitely impacts, mood and identity and relationships and things like that. So, there's a need for kind of psychosocial support to help people live well with dementia. Support for engaging in physical activities, maintaining your physical health, that has a myriad of impacts. It supports your cognitive function, it improves your mood, your emotional health. Getting outside, it's good for well-being. So, encouraging, people to engage in physical activity is really important. And of course, it can also help prevent falls as well. It should support social interaction with peers. Again, a lot of people with the diagnosis stop socializing, just a stigma of the condition or a kind of a lack of confidence. Of course, many people with dementia also have comorbidities, right? So conditions like dementia or hypertension, heart disease. So you get this real complexity of care, particularly things around polypharmacy. So multiple medications are very difficult to manage. And if the comorbidities aren't managed well, then there's an impact on the dementia symptoms and so on. So there's support needed for that. And then just the signposting, in Ireland in particular, it's a real postcode lottery in terms of what the community services are that are available to you. So signposting to, available services in your community, and also to assistive technologies, and how to use those technologies. So I'm just going to run through a few designs that we have of our technology here. So it's a modular digital platform, and it can be used by people at different stages of the condition, and it's really around, as I say, delaying progression through self-management and engagement in activities. And the idea of it being modular is that people can, add individual components or use the whole suite, kind of based on their entire need. So the front end is a dashboard, and that has that really very prominent dementia clock, and that helps to kind of orientate the user. And the dashboard then links to a planner and 4 different sections. So mind, body, support, and a summary. And the planner, that's really the heart of the application. So that's all about supporting daily routine management, highlighting today's activities, your appointments, your medication. And you can, complete these activities either tracking through sort of self-report, or there's a suite of sensors that underpin the application. And you can set reminders about these things. So say you have an appointment at 3 o'clock, you might need to start thinking about getting ready for that appointment at 1 o'clock, right? You have to take the bus or whatever it is. So you can set these reminders, and they can be delivered through the app, through a smartwatch, or through a voice assistant. And people have been really very positive about voice as a support. Oh, sorry, that's the planner there. That I'll say is kind of the heart of the activity. The next part is the body section, and that can be used to track exercise, activity, sleep, and that, you know, and also there's education on the importance of these activities. And again, that information is captured either via self-report or through the sensing framework. And we really think about how sensors could be added or removed over time. So early in a diagnosis, like a watch or a smartwatch or wearable, you know, could be used to support tracking activity by the person themselves. But as the condition progresses, maybe passive home sensing for monitoring safety within the home, that becomes more relevant. And that's actually more important for the carer over time. So, you know, and I'll talk a little bit about, so some of the things, you know, we've done, we're using Amazon Echo to push notifications and reminders, but we're also looking at making appliances around the home smart. So smart plugs, you know, if you attach that to a kettle and a microwave, that can give insights, for example, if a person's eating or drinking. And then users, they can also record symptoms, they can track medication. So things like blood pressure, for example, is very important in managing vascular or dementia, or you're tracking your temperature can give insights to infections like UTIs, which can cause delirium in dementia. And these are some of the sensors that we potentially could see around the home. You probably can't see these, but I can, you know, send these slides on. But these kind of sensors, you know, and particularly we're looking more and more at voice-based commands. So, for example, to support daily routines. So, you know, Alexa can say, you know, you could say, "Good morning, Alexa, can you turn on the lights? You know, could you start the coffee machine? Can you read the news? Can you tell me what's in my planner for today?" You know, you can have reminders coming either through, again, your phone or your tablet to remind you, for example, to take your medication. Or, you know, home and safety, you know, if you're Alexa, I'm leaving the home, you know, and it will remind you, well, make sure you take your keys. If it's raining, take an umbrella, and so on. In terms of mind, in the mind section, it's really about sort of education on education and interventions around brain exercises, mindfulness, and we've implemented a memory box for reminiscence. And again, these can, you know, all be adapted to the condition stage. And I'm going to talk about how we're going to use AI to look at that kind of adaptation. And then it's also, what we also have is a companion carer app. So this is the app to support the carer in organizing their own health, but also, you know, daily routine management for themselves and for the person. So what we see is that, you know, functionality will be transferred over from the app for the person with dementia to this companion carer app as the condition progresses. And that also kind of, I suppose, extends the period of usefulness of the platform. So I just have one last slide, and this is something we're looking at now, sort of extending the platform in terms of how could we use some AI-based tools in this, particularly generative AI, so the ChatGPTs and so on. So I think we see real potential in terms of offering personalized support, you know, so adapting the communication, the reminders to individuals' needs and preferences. You know, AI can be used to sort of learn people's routines and preferences, obviously with informed and clear consent mechanisms. The cognitive assistance, so to provide those orientation cues, those prompts, you know, help with daily tasks in a very natural conversational way. One of the things I suppose we see is that people struggle with multi-step activities. So hygiene activities that have a number of steps, cooking a meal has a number of steps. So could Gen AI be used, for example, to talk people through those kind of routines? reminiscence, where these models are at now. You could very easily think about curating a large language model based on a person's past, history. So that could be photographs, it could be music, videos, it could be descriptions of, of what they worked at in their lives. So tell me, John, about the time you worked at the bakery, what was that like? And that can really, I suppose, maybe think about those issues around identity and connection. And there's, ethical issues around all of these, but, we see this rise now of AI companions to reduce loneliness through conversation and reminiscence and so on. But I suppose and this kind of idea as well around information simplification, right? So, simplifying very complex information into clear, accessible language. But I think, we're only starting this part of the work, and I think the co-design is going to be really important here, because we're also trying to figure out, I suppose, what are people's attitudes to AI? That's what Paul is going to talk about. And how do people feel, I suppose, about AI supporting them in this kind of context? There's a whole nest of ethical issues that we need to look at there. So that's where I am. I'm going to pause there. I think I've just gone over a little bit, Paula, a couple of minutes. But I'm happy to take any questions or comments on that.
Yeah, so I would have numerous questions if I'm permitted to ask one.
Absolutely. Well, from me, certainly, yes.
Okay. Well, I think you've made pretty clear that this app or platform, I'm not sure whether it's a web-based or a device-based thing. It could be both, either. But you've made pretty clear that it's a big focus of it anyway, shall I say, has to do with the management of the condition and the necessary things that have to happen to support the people.
Yeah.
Have you actually got to an implementation stage yet?
So we've implemented, so what we have are a lot of sort of disparate pieces, right? So we've implemented the tablet application, which we have really focused on in evaluating that, really on the usability aspects. Is it actually
Right.
usable by the people, right? And we've put a lot of work, I suppose, human-computer interaction type techniques into making that usability kind of a priority, because I suppose that's what we see as a benchmark for adoption. We have now implemented the underlying sensing platform. We haven't evaluated that with sort of real world end users yet, as in, persons with cognitive impairments. We've been running field trials of that, what we call friendly trials, in the homes of sort of the researchers' homes, because that's really about testing, connectivity and reliability and things like that. So that the next part of our evaluation is to see what pieces, if any, of that sensing platform are useful and usable by people. What we're seeing so far is that people are very keen on voice-based technology. Actually, it might even supersede the app. We're not quite sure where kind of that is going yet. But you probably have a follow-up question to that.
I do actually, if I am permitted to just do that one. You'll see in the most exciting part for me anyway about your talk was towards the end, where you started to talk about the AI. And you can see some AI being used right here in this session. If I'm looking at the chat box, when Nina has invoked the transcription AI bot. Now, all of these things are still in the early stages, but I think that's where you will get the biggest value for the dementia people. And you may even be able to support cognitive function rather than just the physical things.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of the times where I hear, numerous times I've heard it, where people that have lost their memory regain some portions of it when music is played, or some familiar smells and so on. So I think AI can be engaged in that sense, so that these people that are suffering are able to rekindle their cognitive function to some degree. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And two of the things that we've spoken to our stakeholder groups exactly like that, like are coming through there. So one is in terms of cognitive function. I suppose one of the things we would cognitive stimulation is one. One of the areas we would see really great potential for generative AI is to actually create cognitive stimulation tools that are meaningful for the person. Like, say, if you like maths quizzes, it can create them. If you like, quizzes about geography, it can create them. It can personalize to your interest, and also that it can adapt as you go. Because one of the things people say is, okay, we got these cognitive stimulation exercises, but they're too difficult or they're too easy, and it's too frustrating for the user. So that kind of learning and adaptation, I think, could be, as well as the personalization, is important. And the second piece there, what you said around, the music and the smells, I think that would be part of the kind of reminiscence therapy, right? To remind people of, music is such a trigger for people, and generally a very positive trigger, and something that can often, calm a person down, because it, generally kind of brings them back to kind of a happier time. So that kind of reminiscence therapy about, bringing those kind of cues into it. I mean, we haven't really gotten into that, but if you think about the reminiscence therapy, one of the things we were saying, we're talking to a person, a carer, and their mother has dementia, and they went to university, and they became a lawyer and so on, but the person has no memory of this, and they keep saying, well, no, I never went to university. I wish I'd gone to university, right? So, this companion could remind the person of that. But what happens if you get an AI companion and the person keeps contradicting them, right? So then it learns the wrong thing. So there's such a huge amount of things, I think, that we have to think about, and how you sort of curate these models and how they're actually used in purposes. The whole sort of socio-technical piece of it, I think, is really interesting, and we're only really getting started on that kind of journey.
Yes. Thanks very much. We can't be perfect, but we can strive to be.
Thank you very much, Heinz. They're great questions.
Yeah,
Hi,
Nina.
Nina.
Thank you. Very exciting presentation. And before I start, Heinz, it was Raymond who actually evoked the AI transcription, not me. But thank you. And I could see like a major contribution. I would encourage you to really focus on the early stage, the pre-diagnosis, those individuals. I'm coming to it from the perspective of having done research on wandering behavior and on transportation and dementia and hospital experience and things like that. But when you think about, your aim on the high quality home care services, well, unfortunately, these are all, insurance only looks at the ADLs, the activities of daily living. You are looking at what I would say, you said meaningful, I would say the instrumental activities of daily living. Everything from meal preparation, meds management, transportation, financial management, all these kinds of cues. The other thing that you had said is that, people are not getting, diagnosed. Well, actually, I don't know, these are probably very old, but 54% of persons actually go undiagnosed. Okay. Yeah. So the potential there of being able to give people these kind of cues, and when you think about people living in the community 8 to 20 years, and then also about 20% living alone in the community. So your ability to have the carer, whether it's informal or formal, to actually have access to this app, is the technology is really really great. Anyway, those are just a few immediate thoughts, but I'm very encouraged by your work.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Nina. We might even pull you into a co-design session online at some point, if that will be okay, because they're fantastic insights.
And thanks very much, Dipna, for that. And just in the interest of keeping to time fairly well, I might just move on to our presentation now. But by all means, we'll field questions if you have any for each particular section of the debate. Is that okay? Okay, great. So I'm going to jump in now and start our discussion on, oh, sorry, I have to share my screen first. That'll be a good idea. So can you all see that screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm the team lead for this project, Age Friendly AI, and I'm going to be joined by Dr. Emma Clark from the ADAPT Centre in one of our partner universities, Dublin City University, in this presentation to discuss the project in general, and in particular I'm going to talk about how we have conducted the actions that we've done so far in the project and how we've done an initial evaluation. And then Emma's going to jump in and talk about the methodologies we've used and where they've come from and where we're going with them. So this project is funded by one of our funding bodies, Research Ireland, as a 2-year project to address AI literacy training for older adults. And we see it as having the potential to transform society, but crucially also to involve older adults in the preparation of this training material so that it's designed not just for them, but with them. So to that end, we've adapted a co-creation methodology, and we have 2 phases to our project. We're halfway through the first phase, having just done the evaluation of the initial data findings. And both of the phases in 2025 come under the umbrella of the dialogue phase. So we had 4 regional co-creation workshops with older adults across Ireland, and all the photos you see have been taken from the activities and the events we've run so far. So hopefully you'll get an idea of the type of activities we conduct with this group of older adults at our co-creation events. So you'll see really what we're doing is we're facilitating dialogue and an opportunity for older adults to gain, sorry, there's some, are we okay? Can you hear me okay? I think there's some background noise, is there? Okay,
yeah, it's the AI interfering, I think.
No problem. I'll just continue on then. Unless somebody has something to say that you want me to stop at any stage, please feel free to raise your hand, and my colleague is here with me to keep an eye on if there's any hand raising. Okay, so as I said, the events that we've conducted so far are really to engage older adults to see if we can capture their hopes, concerns, and ideas around artificial intelligence. And then in the second part of the dialogue phase for the remainder of 2025, we've done some analysis of the data we've gathered at these 4 regional co-creation events. And we've designed out some scenarios with the top concerns and hopes that people have expressed around artificial intelligence as it affects their daily lives. And we're going to go back out to some citizen thinking engagement workshops, 4 of them regionally again, to have further discussions around these scenarios that we've developed out. At the end of this, we're going to create a white paper that we hope will influence policymakers and industry partners in how they design out further AI technologies and policies around that. And then the 2026 phase of the project involves the national rollout of our AI literacy training, materials that we have designed or are starting to design out now, based on the feedback that we get from all the different activities we conduct with older adults around the country and with our stakeholders that have come on board as partners in the project. So we have a very ambitious target of reaching 60,000 older adults, and some of that is through lightweight engagements, through postcard campaigns, through social media, through media mentions that I'll give you a flavour of later on in the presentation. And some is through deep engagement at these type of community engagement workshops and in our rollout phase with the library events that we're going to conduct in 2026. So just on the workshops that we've conducted so far, and the citizen engagement workshops will follow a similar approach. Our main objective is to enhance AI literacy for older adults, and so far we've conducted multimodal workshops consisting of an introductory presentation, pre and post surveys to gather the feedback and input of older adults, facilitated group discussions and interactive sessions where we give people a chance to try out various off-the-shelf and in-house built tangible artifacts to engage in a discussion around AI concepts, both the positives and indeed the negative sides of them as well. We've then used the input that we've received from this engagement to do some evaluation, and I'll present what we have so far in terms of that data in a few slides. So we start out with this introductory presentation, and to give you a flavour of it, we ask generally from amongst the group, we try to determine how aware people are of whether they're using artificial intelligence already or not. So we ask for a show of hands on if you've used AI today, and perhaps we could do a quick show of hands to see if anyone is, or how many people are aware that they've used AI or not already. So I'll just give 2 minutes.
Well, here you mean, I think everybody would be, wouldn't they? Yeah.
And then I might ask, so in a typical crowd of, say, 30 older adults at 11 a.m. in the morning, mainly third level educated participants, how many do you think would put up their hands when I ask that question? Would anyone hazard a guess out of a group of 30 older adults, second and third?
Everybody.
Well, surprisingly enough, about 3 out of 30 is our general stat on it. So, and I suppose that kind of tells us that in a community setting, non-technical audience, quite a number, a large proportion of the audience are unaware that they've used AI already in the day. So we asked.
Yeah, but Paula, you have to be careful. They're all Irish ones, right?
This is true. Yes, we're working with, it's a national initiative, so it's Ireland so far. And I guess this is where this engagement comes in. We're hoping that we might be able to leverage this network to run similar type of data analysis, I guess, on the audience. But anyway, we present then various pieces of services and technologies that older adults might have used. So I ask if anybody has used Google Maps to get to the location, if they've happened to watch a bit of Netflix in the morning, if they've looked up the weather, if they've paid with anything through a card payment system, if they've passed a CCTV that they're aware of on their way to the event, if they've been at the airport recently to have their facial features recognized in password checkers, etc., or used YouTube, or used any games, or indeed further along used ChatGPT or predictive text. And then I run the survey again. And how many do you think put up their hands in a group of 30?
They would all.
They would all, exactly. So almost all of them will then acknowledge that, in fact, they have used AI. And the thing is that that's worrying for us, and I guess it's the motivation behind the project, is that AI is actually everywhere. And, you know, it's embedded in services and products that many people have become used to using even before AI became so prevalent. But what hasn't happened is people haven't been brought along on that journey in being educated as where it is embedded. So unlike other technologies where you have a choice of whether you engage or not, you have no choice with a lot of products and services. It's in there, it's coming at you. And that's where we see this work as adding huge value for community groups, in particular older adults. So following that presentation, we do facilitated group discussions, and we're trying to capture in this the hopes, concerns and ideas that older adults have around AI. And then we explore a number of AI features and technologies through interactive demos. So this is one that we've built in-house. It's a mask, so it's essentially a speech-to-text and text-to-speech interface into ChatGPT. And I guess it allows, in a fun and engaging, maybe threatening way, ChatGPT in general. And we allow, give a chance for people to try it out if they haven't tried it out already. And we provide some prompts to help them get started on it. And then we explore some of the less ethical features of generative AI through prompts that cause hallucination or bias in its replies. And that level of engagement, if we get to it with participants, really allows us to explore the other side of AI, the less engaging side, or the more worrying side of generative AI. And then we have a very nice demo that seems to attract a lot of participants who might be a little bit wary of the mask and so on. A very tangible engagement here with Arter AI. And this allows, again, a discussion around what implications has generated artworks or in the creative field in art in this example, but further broader than that in the artistic or creative side of things. What implications has it for this sector? So some of these are generated and some of them are images that are real. Our latest demonstration is taking an old radio interface, and this is very engaging for older adults because they're not scared of it like they might be with the interface. So initial feedback on this is that it's an engaging way to start a conversation. So we've taken an old radio interface and we've produced a 3D printed prototype of it, and we've embedded into it some AI features. So when you use the tuners, you're tuning it to a location and to various channels, some of which are AI generated and some of which are real. And then we have off-the-shelf products like Alexa or Google Home hooked up to a smart plug. So you, again, get a chance to try out the voice assistants. But again, we get into discussion then on who owns the data around that you might speak into it. Is Google listening all the time? Is Amazon constantly listening out? What else is it picking up, etc.? So it's a nice mechanism to do that. And then also there's a chance to try out some of the generative AI tools off the shelf. So just quickly then, the pre and post surveys for the evaluation. We've asked the participants on the left-hand side there, you see their self-reported understanding of AI pre the workshop and then post the workshop on the right-hand side. So we have some nice results there. We've surveyed about 250 older adults so far. What you're seeing here is the data from a sample 80 or just over 80 participants. And then in their confidence, again, a nice increase in self-reported confidence. So at the this, most of these older adults that have attended have come of their own accord. So I guess they're quite confident in going to workshops, public engagement workshops, and so on. But still, there's some nice increase in their level of confidence in talking about AI and using the terminology and being more familiar with what's meant by generative AI or facial recognition software, or whatever it might be. Now, the most insightful part of this presentation, I think maybe for you, would be to see that from our qualitative data analysis, we can see that the opportunities that older adults have identified as being the most important for them are around healthcare, independent living, social connection, and help with everyday tasks. So some report on, having used robotic lawnmowers and vacuum cleaners in their home, and they a lot see potential benefits with healthcare, albeit slight concerns as well about the ownership of the data around it. The concerns that have been expressed have been around privacy and security, trust and transparency of the data, and the lack of human contact as a result of over-reliance on AI tools, for example, in chatbots or in trying to contact their local bank or whatever it might be. So just a small bit about the project. We have lots of public-facing events conducted already in the first few months of the project. And so you can see some of those listed there. We have a number of international research impacts with peer-reviewed papers, members of cost action groups, and this network here providing us the opportunity to reach out to more than the national level. And we have 940 older adults have participated in our events so far. We have 51 researchers involved with facilitating and scribe materials. These were our existing partners and our supporting partners, and we've since been have signed up a partnership with Libraries Ireland, which is fantastic because it's through the libraries that we'll be able to conduct the 2026 part of the project in disseminating our training material in community settings. So they'll be at the heart of the community. They are the experts in engagement, and they seem very keen to help us out. And this project aligns very closely with a national initiative called Skills for Life that the libraries are conducting as part of their work. As part of the engagement with the libraries, we're going to run train the trainer workshops for the librarians themselves and other partners who are interested in being trainers for the literacy training material that we're developing. And we're then going on the roadshow in 2026. We also have an exciting library pack that we've launched on the 8th of September as part of our International Literacy Day offering. And that has a series of postcards, free postcards, asking again for members of the public to fill in their hopes, concerns, and ideas around AI. And they're currently being displayed in our libraries around the country. And we have a target of 5,000 responses for those postcards, those postcards that we hope will be filled in. And then a number of media mentions that have already helped us to achieve the targets of 60,000 older adults being informed about this project. You can read about those on our website. And we have a number of upcoming engagement activities for the second part of phase 1, the dialogue phase. And they, again, are on our website and listed here. And we would also ask you to share your own thoughts on your hopes, concerns, and ideas. So I'll put that up after the questions and answers. Actually, I'll hand over to Emma first, and maybe then we can take the questions and answers together. Emma, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. There is one in the chat, maybe just while I'm setting up. So Carol had a question about, have you asked for professors emeriti to be involved in any of the research projects? And if not, why not?
Okay, well, that's great, Carol. We'd be delighted to. But at the moment, we have funding as on a national level. And one of our targets is indeed to show that we've reached out beyond that. But I guess the funding at the moment is for the national events. But certainly we'd like to explore that. And this is our first, I suppose, our first engagement with the network. So this might be kickstarting that.
Paula, I have a question. You mentioned the age-friendly part of this, and I may have missed it as one of your partners, but how does this relate to the broader global age-friendly initiatives, or more specifically, the age-friendly university global network that I believe started at Dublin? I'm just wondering how this fits into the broader picture, if it does.
Emma, do you have something on that?
Yeah, so I suppose we've partnered, just the initial part, we've partnered, one of our kind of initial partners on the project was Age Friendly Ireland, who are based in counties all around Ireland. So every kind of local area within the country has their own dedicated age-friendly office and organization. So they're one of our partners, and they've been instrumental in kind of disseminating information about events and kind of coming to our stakeholder engagements and providing kind of their expertise. We're also in DCU, Dublin City University, where I'm based. The Age Friendly University it has a very active network, some of whom we've already engaged just through activities, and we're actually exploring opportunities to collaborate more closely with the Age Friendly University there. So it's kind of all part of our ongoing plan, I suppose.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I might just start my screen share there, and then we can take the questions some more questions together at the end. So I'm going to kind of zoom out slightly, I suppose, from the emphasis on age-friendly, and I'm going to talk a bit about the work that we're doing in the ADAPT Centre, and the age-friendly AI project very much fits under that. But just to give a little bit of background first about the ADAPT Research Centre. So ADAPT is a Research Ireland, formerly Science Foundation Ireland Research Centre for Digital Content Technology, which in recent years has become pretty much a centre for AI and digital content technology. And it's a multidisciplinary research centre. So there are over 350 researchers working in institutions around nationally and working in a wide range of disciplines. So computer scientists, obviously, but they work alongside linguists, ethicists, journalists, sociologists, legal experts, and healthcare experts. So it's truly multidisciplinary. And I am based on the education and public engagement team, where we focus mainly on education and public engagement and engaged research based on kind of human-centric AI. And just to go back slightly, so I suppose currently AI and ChatGPT are kind of household names, but a few years ago that wasn't the case, and you know, regardless of how widespread the technologies have become, there are still concerns and questions around the ethical use of the technologies and how they kind of affect us in our daily lives. And a report back in 2018 by the Royal Society of Arts found that people believe that decisions about how technology is used in relation to them are increasingly beyond their control. And that report found that there was a lack of trust and transparency when it came to these technologies and the people who are making the decisions around them. And the authors of that report suggested a potential solution that decisions should be made with the public and not just for them. And they went on to outline different approaches to citizen engagement. Then in 2021, Ireland's national AI strategy called AI Here for Good this report placed people very much at the centre of AI innovation, and the strategy acknowledged the need to establish public trust in AI. However, research that came out of the ADAPT Centre in 2020 indicated that at that point in time there had been few attempts in Ireland to engage the public with societal and ethical impact of AI. And it was clear that there was a growing need for public engagement and public dialogue initiatives to explore the use of AI within society. So in response to this, ADAPT launched Discuss AI in 2021. And this is a program of interactive events and resources that enable the public and other stakeholders to engage in these dialogues about the role of AI. It fits in with our education and public engagement framework, which is structured around 3 pillars: learn, explore, and participate. And I suppose I'm going to particularly focus on the participate pillar, where this is where we see stakeholders contributing directly to ADAPT's research. And this can be through co-design and participation in engaged research projects, and also opportunities to contribute to citizen science projects, and opportunities for people to have their say on the future of AI. So we have a number of engaged research projects. These are some of them. So these include the Sign On project, which looks at mobile sign language translation, and an app for facilitating that. We also have 2 citizen science projects, one called Eureka, which focuses on brain health. So it uses smartphone games to take brain health research out of the lab and into people's smartphones. And then Novel Eco, which is which is looking at kind of citizen science data around biodiversity in cities. And then, of course, age-friendly AI that Paula introduced to us already. So we're kept very busy with all of these projects, but for the remainder of my time here, I'd like to focus in on one of our kind of flagship projects that kind of runs, kind of alongside all of these and is increasingly being integrated into projects like age-friendly AI. And these are called Citizens Think-ins. So these Citizens Think-ins are public discussion forums based on ADAPT's research areas. And they're designed to foster discussion and dialogue around the societal impact of AI. The themes focus on AI, so particularly the ethics and the privacy aspects of these technologies. And overall, we just aim to kind of facilitate informed debate on the role of these technologies in our lives. We want people to feel more engaged with and have a platform to have their say on these issues. And also alongside that, to ensure that researchers become, in tandem with that, more familiar with public views on their work. And these have been funded over the years by Science Week, the Irish Science Week initiative, and also Research Ireland, or Science Foundation Ireland as it was. So the general format of these events is that we start with an introductory presentation or sometimes a small panel discussion on whatever theme that's being discussed at the event. I'll go into a bit more detail on that in a minute. So then the group breaks out into small group discussions to discuss particular scenarios related to the theme. And again, I'll elaborate a bit more on this. But these are co-created scenarios, and Paula mentioned, so this Think-ins approach is what we're going to be using for the next phase of the age-friendly AI project. And Paula has already mentioned the co-creation aspect of the project, where through that process, we've created the scenarios for the upcoming discussions. So following the small group discussions, the whole group comes back together and there's a report back from each group. And just to mention that the small group discussions are facilitated by a trained facilitator, and there is a scribe that takes notes during the discussion. And then this is followed by a kind of a whole group reflection and deliberation on the topic. So who participates in these? So this project, the Citizens Think-ins, launched in 2019. And since then, we've engaged, or we've held multi-stakeholder dialogue between more than 150 researchers and over 700 people. And during this time, we've worked with over 25 community partners. And Age-Friendly Ireland, for example, would be one of those community partners who work with us to develop these discussion scenarios. And we have a bank of over 20 of those currently on our website. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail about the kind of the process that we use. And this is currently a process that we're undergoing with the Age-Friendly AI project. So co-creation is at the heart of these events, and the kind of principles of co-creation and co-development are embedded throughout the project. And by design, we actively engage communities in the production and in the different stages of the process. And this includes choosing Think-in topics to discuss and explore, co-developing the content, including the discussion scenarios. And also we're working with a Brussels-based organization called Sticky Dot, and they are using a very novel co-evaluation method to evaluate. So they're external evaluators on the project, and they're kind of involved at every stage of the process, and it's very iterative, and it's kind of a fascinating process to kind of that everybody is working on together. So how do we go about it? So the way that we approach it is we kind of think first about, and I'll give a kind of a worked example of this, but we look at the different kind of people that we want to talk about a particular topic. Say, for example, if it's, you know, age-friendly AI technologies. So we think about that we want to maybe engage the general public. We want to talk to specific community groups about this, or other stakeholders. And what we do is we assemble a small group of kind of a small sample, I suppose, of the overall audience that we wish to engage. And we bring these together for co-creation workshops. And these workshops are facilitated by researchers primarily, but also by representatives from the communities. And we have kind of discussions, open discussions around the topic that we're exploring. The themes or the outputs that emerge from this are then brought forward into the scenario development. And once the scenarios have been developed, we then go back to the group to kind of make sure that the scenarios represent what was discussed in the co-creation session. So once these are finalized, then they go forward to the thinking, where we bring the audience together. The scenarios form the basis for the overall discussion, and the insights from the discussion then ultimately feed back into the ADAPT research agenda. And just to kind of, I'll just briefly take you through an example of that process in action, and thinking about how we went from a kind of an idea for a topic to concrete outputs that have then been used to kind of to conduct conversations in the area. So back in 2022, a community organisation based in a rural area in Ireland, southwest of Ireland, called Kerry, County Kerry, got in touch with us. They were called the Centre for Smart Ageing. And we kind of facilitated a discussion and a collaboration that involved people from the ADAPT Centre, also Hands-on Shafe, and Damon is going to be talking about Hands-on Shafe shortly in the next speaker. And we used this methodology that was outlined on the previous slide to explore what kind of topics people might like to discuss. So as I mentioned, the stakeholders were, so the audience in this case was older people in County Kerry, people from the Centre for Smart Ageing, researchers, and the Hands-on Shafe project. And this thinking brought together kind of a large number of community members in Kerry to explore scenarios, or to co-develop and then explore through discussion scenarios around things like smart devices in the home, such as Alexa, the kind of the move away from using cash towards a cashless society, and you know what that means for people as they have to embrace online banking, for example. Other topics that emerged there were around kind of communication, and I suppose at the time coming out of COVID, there, you know, people were using online platforms more, or there were, you know, the digital divide was becoming wider as, you know, people who maybe weren't as tech savvy weren't able to communicate in the same way as people who were more online. So I do have a small short video about that event, but in the interest of time, I might just move on. And if we do have some time at the end, I can play it, but I can also send it on. I think it gives a really nice feel for the types of events. And just to say that this particular organization, the Center for Smart Aging, they are going to be hosting our first Think-In in this current series. So it's really nice that we're going back there again to kind of develop the conversation on funding. So I won't play the video, but I will share it. So I suppose the really exciting thing that came out of that previous Think-In that I just mentioned was that it demonstrated the need for kind of a more dedicated initiative that explored AI literacy with older adults specifically, and that we were able to kind of reference that discussion in the funding proposal that led to a successful funding application. So I'm going to move on because Paula has already outlined the stage that we're at. So we've conducted the co-creation workshops. That was April to June. We've spent the summer analysing what's come out of these, and we're about to move into this phase of Think-Ins now. And just before I wrap up, I actually can't see how I am for time, so hopefully I'm not
fine, Emma.
It's okay, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the value for the researchers, as we've heard from researchers that have been involved, the value in this type of engagement lies in, the development of a stakeholder group, and Dimna has mentioned the importance of having a stakeholder group, when developing these types of technologies. There's also a benefit when it comes to enriching information models. It offers an opportunity to link in with policy formation and to feed into policy discussions. Also the opportunity to link with, regulatory bodies. So we've run events, looking at healthcare and AI that have then, been used in reports on health authorities here in Ireland. Also the link in with practice and overall kind of fostering a research infrastructure which values engagement with patients and with citizens. And I'll just go through one or two of the kind of the evaluation findings on this. So when they were asked about the reasons behind why people attend, they have different motivations. Curiosity about AI is a big one, and also the desire. People are really keen to kind of like form an educated kind of opinion about the topic, and also to share their opinions, but also to hear other people's opinions. So the evaluation also found that the Think-Ins brought together a range of stakeholders, and that there was a diversity in the audience, but there was still room for improvement, because we do see that people tend to come, who are maybe have a higher level of education or, or have medium to high incomes. So we're constantly working hard to try and explore options to diversify the stakeholders that we're meeting. The evaluation found that the format showcases effective co-creation, and very important to us when we're having these discussions is that this approach means that a safe space for dialogue was established around these events, and I think that's really important in the current climate, to have these kind of safe spaces. And one of the things that we do that kind of helps us to establish that safe space, but also to kind of encourage more inclusivity is this conversation code that we use in all of our events. And this was co-created with a number of partners, including the deaf and hard of hearing community that we've worked with previously. So this is a very useful, when you're dealing with contentious topics, this is a very useful tool to have a conversation code. And my last one, so that by establishing this safe space, it has led to participants feeling emboldened to contribute and to share their thoughts on how AI is impacting their lives. And again, that's been a very kind of nice outcome, I suppose. So I might stop sharing there my screen. And I suppose maybe it's a good time to open up to some questions, if there are any, or
there's definitely questions, lots of questions. But it might not be my turn yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So thanks very much. Look, exciting developments. And one of the reasons I actually attend these meetings that Jose and Alexander put on, and the others over there in Europe, is for mental stimulation. I've been retired from my university job for, I think, 12 or 13 years now. And I love it out in the bush, like in the background there. That's about 1,500 kilometres northwest of Perth, which is 3 times Perth in Western Australia, which is 3 times the distance Dublin to the nearest Perth that you're in. So the mental stimulation has been terrific. Now, Paula, in your talk, there was one slide where the methodology took my interest, and tangible artifacts. And I thought, oh, what are these tangible artifacts? Anyway, later, I think I focused on the radio, the 3D printed radio. Is that one of these tangible artifacts?
It is, yeah. That's the latest one that we're developing out.
Yes.
Yep.
And then I thought to myself, well, I wonder why we have to have tangible ones. Why can't there be just a square, a black square or a white square, which the user imagines is the artifact, and then starts to interact with it, with their imagination, and build it with good tools into whatever they want. Anyway, just maybe a silly idea.
Well, but, actually, no, that's a very good. Oh yeah, go ahead.
One plea, please, Paula and Emma, could you send Alexander or Jose the links to your articles? I want to read those articles. 3 already are published. Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited to discover the methodology that I guess you used grounded theory or some version of that in your qualitative study. I want to read all about that and the outcomes, and that would help me. One of the topics that comes up repeatedly in these sessions is that the retired types like us, when you no longer have an active connection with the university, you lose all the good support. For me, I've got terrific connectivity. I get 800 megabits per second bandwidth and so on and so forth, but I don't have good access to library information. And the library at my university was absolutely fantastic. Now, that's not cheap to just provide yourself. So I'm always looking for simple and easy ways. Please send the list of references so that I can follow those. Thanks very much.
Yeah, just I'll jump in there for a minute, Heinz, just to say that with the radio, for example, that was co-created where a colleague went out with the radio to one of our public engagement events and said, okay, we'd like to do something because the masks seemed a little bit scary for some participants. Younger people were more inclined to engage with it than older adults. So it seemed a little bit off-putting. So we kind of came up with the idea, or my colleague did, to bring out a radio which had a more familiar, less threatening interface, and said, what do you think we could do with it? So the process of adding bits of AI onto it and reimagining it with this AI-powered device very much was like, a blank page. And I guess what you say, okay, we laid it down a certain path by having that interface and clicking buttons and so on. But really, what came out of that and what's been designed out now with the team here is as a result of ideas that were generated in a
So
co-creative
for me,
manner.
the goal seems to be to promote HI with AI, HI being human intelligence, to promote empowering. All my life, I've been on about using information technology to empower people, students essentially in our game, of course, to do more and better.
Yeah.
And pretty much we all
Well,
do.
now we're a little bit we're being a little bit safer than that. What we want to do is prompt conversations around artificial intelligence. So by all means, we want to showcase what it can do, but we also want our proponents of, making people aware of what they're giving away when they're engaging with these technologies, and if they're okay with that. So it could
Yeah.
be around data, mainly around data, to be fair, but also the offerings of services. So, if your bank if it's going to be digital only and not a digital first, is that fair? Is it equitable? Is it accessible for all? Similarly with healthcare products, with lots of services, recommendation engines in particular, if you're going to be constantly recommended things based on what you've looked at and listened to, and only on those genres, is that fair and equitable? Is that the right thing to do? So we're prompting conversations on both sides of the argument. It's kind of a little bit different when you're talking about information systems because you have a choice then of engaging or not. And we're saying that the products and services are really being AI has been being embedded with them with maybe without due consideration of the impacts. It's coming so fast and so quick, and there are such drivers behind it with different agendas, and that we need to be careful about that.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody from the team want to jump in on that?
No, I think you summed it up there.
Yeah, I suppose as well that we know that there are groups that are kind of not only sort of digitally excluded, which older adults will be part of that, but that in terms of, say, representation in data sets and so on, that, data sets often include mostly the data around younger people, about people who are working, a certain age group, and we see older people excluded from those kind of data sets, and that can result in, there's a bias in the data sets. And so the AI systems that are developed are not sort of optimized, let's say, for that kind of population. So it is, and I think it was Nina put it in there. It's all around that sort of, it's all part of the AI literacy, the critical thinking piece about AI, and sort of understanding what it can do and what it can't do and what it might not do. For example, if you're not represented in the data sets, it might not work as well for you as it would for somebody else. But it's just it's all part of the literacy, and I think it's all part of the sort of vocabulary as well, to be able to actually, for people to be able to discuss AI and have a conversation about it, to be part of the conversation.
I see Daniel has a hand up.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Since humanoid robots have become very versatile and very well functional in also regarding healthcare, things like that, and AI enabled, of course, have you considered to experiment with those?
As in robots for vacuum cleaners and lawnmowers, that type of thing?
Well, humanoid robots with AI like are on the road, so to speak. And I can imagine they are very useful to help elderly people to get through their days and nights. I don't know. So have you considered their potential in your projects?
Demna, have you some in yours?
Not yet, but you're right. That's definitely coming at us. I suppose at the moment they're exorbitantly expensive for research projects at universities and so on. And mostly, I suppose, the work that it just so happens that sort of in my research group, we're more of a kind of computer science group rather than a hardware type group. But you are completely right that they are coming at us quickly, and that also they're becoming much more dexterous and much more mobile than they used to be. And there are really those kind of socio-technical issues as well to be explored there, right? That you could imagine a carer coming in to look after a person, for example, and it's, what did you say, one of these kind of humanoid robots, and what are the sort of attitudes and perceptions to that? And they could be quite super intelligent, these robots. You can imagine them managing things like medication and schedules and things like that can be quite easily kind of automated. So I think it's happening quickly.
Yeah.
Anybody else wishing to contribute?
If I could just.
Yep.
I'd have to mute you. Now I'll be able to hear the sound if it's coming through, but I'm hoping people can hear me. But
We can hear you.
so I'm Damon, and I'm the next presenter. But a colleague in our university is looking at human perception of those kind of cutesy humanoid robots and how users perceive them. So, I have to say personally, I'm a little bit biased about this. I'm not sure that a robot should be perceived as cutesy, but like you've got robots that are marketed that have a child's face and a child's voice, and they have cameras and they're bristling with sensors and they're pointed at humans, and all to help humans, of course. But it is actually just something deceptive about that. But that's researchers looking at how humans perceive that, and do they make a connection with the machine, and I think that's a really interesting aspect too, because there's the benefit of it, but then there's also the possibility of dependency that comes from those things. And I think that's a really interesting area that needs for a lot of further work, because obviously, potentially vulnerable users who are becoming dependent on a technology where it's just technology, So I think that's another dimension to this whole thing that needs to be investigated.
Well, you said it's just technology. However, if you, for example, take a book of Isaac Asimov, uh, it's an interest that he wrote interesting books experimenting with this interaction between humans and robots, and I believe we are not very far from such communication and functionality, of course. So yeah, there is the border between just machine and a robot is not that sharp anymore, I think.
Raymond has his hand up there. Raymond, would you like to?
Yeah, actually, I have my question is in the chat. I don't know if you haven't seen it yet, I think. Well, first of all, just congratulations. You're doing incredible work. And I just wondered whether while you were going through building your interventions and your care for dementia people suffering from dementia, have you started with having a baseline and then looking for impact of the different elements that you developed? Have you seen maybe a difference, as much as that's ethically allowed, to compare the behavior and the impact of the people that you're working with compared to a control group that didn't benefit from the type of work that you're doing with them?
Yeah, thanks. That's for me, Raymond. Yeah, so unfortunately, what we don't have is the sort of long-term funding to allow us to do that kind of work. That's kind of the next thing that we're applying for. And I don't know if we'll get to do a control group. It'll probably just be the intervention group. What we've done so far are, sort of very small scale studies. Really, I suppose, we've been focused kind of on the usability of the tools, and we've collected sort of baseline data there around demographics and some of the sort of clinical data, their diagnosis stage, and so on. But what we really want to move to are, doing those kind of baseline studies around, the standard measures of your cognition, also your quality of life, measures around caregiver burden and caregiver stress, well-being measures, and so on. And then what we want to do is obviously kind of, repeat those evaluations at whatever it is, sort of 3, 6, and 12 months. But I think it definitely has to be very kind of mixed methods approach as well, not just sort of surveys, but kind of qualitative feedback. I think, that the numbers might miss things around, what does well-being mean for a person? What is independence for a person? I think those things are important. But I suppose the funding we've had so far has been sort of in, blocks of kind of 18 months. What we're applying for now is a grant for 4 years that would hopefully allow us to capture more of that kind of data.
Well, yeah, thanks. All you said, except makes sense, and except for you didn't say anything about looking at the attempt to measure the different interventions. To see which maybe there's a difference, and if so, maybe for some patients, or maybe across the board. But that would be, of course, very useful to know if some interventions are more powerful to help them.
I agree. That's a really good suggestion. So people have sort of different flavors of the toolkit. One is just the sort of app or whatever. Some of it is supplemented by sensors. Some people have the AI, and different slivers of that. That's a really good suggestion. Yeah.
Look forward to reading about it.
Great. Thank you. If you know anybody who wants to fund me for 4 to 5 years, put them in touch.
Last year, around this September in Berlin, there was an international conference looking at the use of music for healing and in hospitals. So I can look up the name of the association. They meet regularly. And I remember there were differences based on interventions, the kind of interventions, and also based on the patient group. But I could see you guys go and present there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Because it would also be useful to let more people know about the work you do. So it could be replicated. It could be also further developed. I'll try to find it and I'll put it into the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you so much very much. That's great feedback.
Right.
Thank you.
And anybody else got any questions there?
What would be interesting, is the prevention. How you prevent people to get to this mode.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on that, I have to say. There certainly are lifestyle factors, but age does seem to be a critical factor. And well, there's a lot of reports now coming out about sort of microplastics in our environment, and that's showing up in Alzheimer's patients and so on. So yeah.
Just one additional question. I guess some people in Ireland are still speaking Gaelic. Do you see any difference in terms of the response by people to the work that you do, the interventions that you do, if you do it in English versus in Gaelic?
Emma, do you want to?
Sure. So we actually haven't done it in Irish yet. but we are exploring opportunities with the kind of the Commission for Irish Language in Ireland. So typically those areas where Irish is spoken as a first language are in the West, very rural, and a lot of the islands off the west coast of Ireland. So that brings with it, you know, the kind of the challenges, I suppose, around the kind of the rural versus urban divide, but also due to the fact that Irish is a minority language within Europe, there are a lot of challenges with AI and Irish, and so there are people within the Adapt Centre working on that. So the idea is that as part of this project, we're going to run a pilot where we'll translate certain parts of the workshop and run it with this organization to see if there's potentially a kind of a future initiative, you know, to explore how this might, you know, these types of interventions might work with such a minority language. It's spoken by so few people as a first language.
Yeah, but don't forget the Breton in France. You still have some Gaelic-speaking people in Brittany.
Absolutely. We could go on tour.
Very good, yeah.
I have a question. You know, I was impressed with the inclusion and concern expressed about caregivers. And I think it's a very important element, especially knowing that in Europe, for example, you know, the aging is continuing while you know, the sort of the gap for the caregivers are growing every day, and the importing of foreign or migrant health caregivers are inevitable. So I was just wondering whether you have done looking into that category of population that you have included in your sort of a vision and the mission statement, and what have you been able to find? Can you say a few, you know, a little bit more? How does the AI, you know, sort of enable or improve their well-being in the process?
Damon, yeah.
Sorry, we've got two laptops side by side, so the sound is a bit funny.
So you didn't hear what I said?
Yeah, maybe repeat, Licha.
Okay, very short.
Topic. Yeah.
Can you hear me, Raymond?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So very short. I was very impressed and also touched by the fact that, you know, concern was given to the well-being of health providers and caregivers. So I was wondering, in the study that you know, the different studies that you have done, what have you find in terms of the AI literacy, and how does the AI actually help to improve their working conditions? And what are the profile of the caregivers?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that for the dementia work. I suppose in terms of the co-design work that we've done, we've worked with dementia charity organizations across Ireland, and we have tried, you know, very hard not to just work with sort of organizations in sort of leafy suburbs of Dublin, that we've, you know, gone around to other parts of Dublin and other parts of the country as well. What we typically find that the sort of most prominent, say, informal caregivers are spouses of the person with the age-related cognitive impairment. So they're generally an older person themselves and often managing their own health conditions. In general, Ireland, I suppose the population is known not to have great health literacy. While we're quite literate, but the population doesn't have great health literacy. So there's certainly a gap there in terms of improving people's health literacy, and that's really important if you're talking about self-management and taking care of your own health care. The again the population, one of the things that we see in terms of then care in the community, we I suppose that's a broader profile of people. So the sort of public health nurses and GPs and so on. Definitely what we see, and we haven't really worked in this space, but I did a bit of work in this space when I worked in the UK, is that the population of caregivers in nursing homes, they often tend to be very lowly paid and from migrant communities, and often with very poor English actually is an issue. And they're giving care to people in nursing homes, and so there's huge kind of not only sort of literacy but just language barriers there in terms of the care that's been given. One of the things we had worked on was on creating kind of more visual aids. So we had looked at creating sort of graphic medicine was one of the things we looked at in terms of creating kind of guidelines and recommendations through that. But that is a huge area, and I agree for ripe for research is the kind of low paid care workers looking after old people in care homes, and a lot of churn in that kind of population as well. So a lack of continuity of care. So I think there's a real opportunity for kind of digital tools to address some of those issues.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm a placeholder for Paula. I am just going to present Damon Barry, who is going to talk about hands-on traffic, because I'm aware of the time. So I'm going to hand over to him.
Is it okay? Yeah, I think that's okay. So hello, everyone. So I'm Damon. So I'm actually a member of the team, and I'm involved in age-friendly AI and various other action, also working with Damon on various different things around dementia. I'm an electronic engineer, and we got into this space a good few years ago. One of the main projects that we worked on before AI really hit us was a project called Hands-on Chafe. So I sort of consider this as kind of a foundation stone for the work we do. So Hands-on Chafe was funded through Erasmus Plus. It involved a number of European partners. And for Hands-on Chafe, I hope you can see can you see the slides there? I hope everyone can see them. We were actually looking at supporting independent living through online learning materials. And just to follow up the previous question there, the main focus of the content was not necessarily on the older people themselves, but on the community who support those older people, the informal carers and the carers in the community, and age-friendly support within businesses and local organizations. So just want to talk a little bit about that. And in particular, I'm going to focus on the technology angle on it. Now, so it's this. Okay, great. Okay, so first, our role within the project, TU Dublin's role within Hands-on Chafe was about technology literacy. And we were trying to develop materials to help improve technology literacy to allow people to live independently for longer, but not necessarily focusing on the technology literacy of the older people themselves, but the people around them. And very often, as Dimpna said, it's a partner who's actually doing the lion's share of the care. And I don't know, I'm just jumping around a bit here, but like in Ireland, there's a lot of voluntary care. So the way our older persons community works is through voluntary support rather than formal support from the health system. And a lot of the stuff is out in rural areas. So the digital divide is a big factor here. So digital access divide. Out in rural communities, there's very often not very good broadband and internet access. But then moving up the digital literacy divide, there's, the skills needed to use modern technology, and like things as simple as phones are still a thing that many older people find difficult with to work with. Using these technologies is one issue, but also then understanding the consequences of it. And like, Paula was referring to that in the Q&A, where, do we really understand the consequences of using AI, particularly where AI is pointed at us as opposed to something that we choose to engage with? So I guess one way that you could deal with that, inequality, is that you could sort of say, well, let's take a low frills approach, and give people kind of, let's say, what some people call dumb technology that's not too fancy. And like, it's like, oh, well, they couldn't possibly cope with the, smartphone or whatever it is. We didn't really like that idea. So one of the starting points for our part of Hands on Shafe was to assume that people wanted to use smartphones and to build content to help them to do it if they felt that they had the capacity to do it. But in the end, they had the freedom to choose. So, in our view, that idea of minimal ICT is actually just exacerbating the digital literacy divide. Going back to when I started in education, one of the big things in Ireland, at least, was this thing called the European Computer Driving License, which is now called the ICDL, the International Computer Driving License. And it was intended for digital literacy for work. So if you were, if you wanted to use, PowerPoint or Microsoft Access or Excel, or move files around or use the internet for the purposes of work, ECDL was designed to achieve that purpose, to make a digitally literate workforce. That was a hugely positive initiative in Ireland. And it turned out that not only people were not only doing it for work, it was happening in the schools where teenagers were learning it. And retired people, I personally taught a whole group of nuns, retired nuns in their 70s and 80s, ECDL back in the early noughties. So, it was quite expansive that way. And I think it had a very positive impact on Ireland, on the digital literacy at all ages in Ireland. But let's remember again, ECDL is intended for work. So it's focused on file management, internet, email, word processing, and and it had a very good impact. If you roll forward now, in the 21st century, technology's in our homes, we need phones to connect to family and friends, and we need phones and smart apps to connect with finance, to connect with government services and apply for grants. To modern health and wellness is connected to health apps and wellness apps. Phones and smart devices, smart TVs are used for entertainment, and then also for booking tickets and all sorts of things. So it's everywhere, right? So now digital literacy is about living, not only just about working, as it was 25 years ago. And so this is a thing that was in our head when we were trying to develop the content for Hands on Shafe. So we attempted to make a set of materials that would actually bridge that divide from a living point of view. Now, interestingly, ECDL, had very good commercial clout because companies like Microsoft were all over it, because they were saying, "Oh, great, one set of software, it's for work, more licenses being sold. Like, there's business behind it, okay." And it's also economically good for governments. Like, governments are actually increasing the digital literacy for work of their population. So the dynamic for digital literacy for a living is a little bit different, I think, even though it's necessary. So how do we provide digital literacy just as a basic human right? So that's sort of what we were trying to look at. Okay, so we were actually taking that point of view, ICDL for a living as opposed to ICDL for work. So the way we approached it as well was, who should be assisted? everybody. We were focusing on helping older people, but like it's not just that you're actually assisting older people directly and raising their digital literacy. Very often, an informal carer might be the one who actually shows them how to use the phone, in which case you might need to give the facility to the informal carer to help them to do that. Okay. Or, if an older person goes into a bank, that there's someone in the bank who understands the older person's perspective in terms of using apps and so on, So it's like looking at all of those factors. So the content should be accessible, it needs to be age friendly. We had 6 partners from different countries, so that was a factor as well in the design of the project, that the content was actually done in 6 different languages, in 6 different European languages. And idea was to give the content away for free, that there was no kind of paywall or anything about it. And so that was sort of what we were working towards. So the results of that are on the handsonshafe.eu website. And it doesn't just, like, our role within the project was to look at the technology part. But just coming back to, Licia, your comment about health and well-being, there's also another partner, Caritas Coimbra. So they looked at health around independent living. And then another partner looked at how to design your home and your public spaces for independent living as well. So we've a number of different sets of materials in 6 languages. Let me see if I can remember them now. English, French, German, Polish, and Portuguese. So there you go.
Wow.
So
impressive.
Doing it in all the different languages was huge. Oh, it was a burden. You make the content and you have to translate it 5 times. It was a serious headache. And it was actually our partners in Academy that Patry worked in, and that actually had to bear a lot of that load. So it was really hats off to those people for managing that. But anyway, and the other thing is to say again that this was intended as content for what we call SHAFE facilitators. Smart, healthy, age-friendly environment facility. So these are the informal carers, the people working in small businesses locally, volunteers in organizations like, like a local older person's club and that sort of thing, and to give them that training in the hope that they might take it and talk to older people about it. So these are the different, I'm just going to skip this, but these are the different sets of things that we did. So we also did a thing about how to set up an age-friendly business, which is like a little bit out there to the side. This is to get the funding, actually. So in order to qualify for Erasmus funding, this is a feature that had to have some sort of commercial angle on it as well. But anyway, we were interested, I think, in the other 3. But anyway.
Yeah, I'll be interested.
So
me too.
If you look on this website, handsonshafe.eu, and this presentation will be shared with you, you can actually browse and have a look. And even if anyone is interested in the PDFs to look at it themselves outside the website, we can share that with you too. So, I know we're going on in time, so I'm not going to go through the detail here, but these are just some of the modules that we focused on across the different topics. So, so we've got general topics in communication, and then these are the healthy ones that we did: chronic diseases, therapy, physical activity, cognitive impairment. And these are the ones about the built environment, and some different things about how to design your home for aging, and public spaces. And then these are the ones that TU Dublin focused on. And this is not a complete set. You'll notice AI is not there, because this stuff was done before the current AI explosion. So we were talking about smart homes, but and obviously there was, artificial neural networks and fuzzy logic and all those things have been around for decades, but the sudden change is not reflected in this content. And that was only finished in 2022. It seems like a totally other different era, but anyway, so that's and we're taking a kind of quite a pragmatic approach with this to say, here's how you do. I guess the more conceptual one would be things like, see if I can move this out of the way so I can see what's there. Smart for, if I remember correctly, is about security. It's there somewhere. It's not on the list, but yeah, Smart for personal mobile security is talking about things like GDPR, and it's more like a discussion piece rather than actually, here's how you do something. A lot of it was here how you do. And it's, again, to stress, it's not intended for the older people themselves. It's intended for other people who are working with them to see themselves and maybe to show them a little bit. That's kind of the idea. Okay. So That's all the smart ones. I realize we're coming to the end here, so I don't want to dwell on this stuff. But in my view, and this is a strongly held belief, ECDL and ICDL were very transformative in Ireland, at least. It'd be really nice if we could repeat that success with, digital literacy for a living across Europe and across the world, actually. And like our humble attempt here was an attempt to go in that direction. But really, I think you need to have European approval and support for something on this scale. With ECDL, it was the computer societies across the different countries that carried the banner for ECDL. And I think you would need something like that again to do the same thing, I think for the benefit of society rather than for business purposes. So I'm going to stop there. So does anyone have any questions?
I do. Actually, Damon, I just wanted to also share in the chat a name and a group that I think it would be fantastic if you connect with them. Lija and I have been in several ISO working groups, and it's the one that I'd like to suggest to you that you could connect with is Ian Spiro in the UK, who is in charge of Working Group 7, which looks at intergenerational and multi-generational works, communities, yes, which includes older people, but also other people. And it's a very comprehensive, a fantastic background that he has. And the work he's done also for the EU, they've done research projects, and they're in the middle of the process of creating a new standard where the work you have done would certainly be very much appreciated, and you can give him our best regards from Lija and from me. We're also part of that working group. So I just put it in. I know
thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just put the information into the chat.
Yes, thank you. I worked myself in ISO TC215 and SEN TC251 in health informatics in the past, so I'm familiar with the ISO process, but I wasn't aware of that work actually. So I've lost track of it. I stopped participating strongly in ISO about 10 years ago, so I haven't been keeping up. I'm afraid
it's still there. Yeah.
Damon, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very tantalizing, and I would love to go to the website to see the business module. We have been asked by colleagues from China how to deal, how to participate, sort of help the older people to move better into the silver economy, not as a consumer per se and the sort of the receiver of services, but rather they can also contribute to the new economy and continue to find some purpose in their engagement. I was just wondering, in order to develop such a project at your scale, how much resources and how much time are we really looking at? I wonder whether your project also was 5 years or not.
It was, it happened. First of all, it happened during COVID, so that was a strange time. The other thing was that looking back on it, the project partners agreed that it was way underfunded for what we delivered. I guess everyone says that, but we really thought so. And that thing about multiplying by different languages was an extra heavy dimension that we hadn't really thought through at the start. The other thing is that scoping was really painful. There's so many really compelling topics that we really wanted to do, and we just didn't have the resources to do it. So it's such a vast area, you can make an entire library of stuff. And I guess the people who did ECDL had the same challenge, and I think they did it pretty well actually. But yeah, it's like it was hundreds of thousands of euros. That was
I mean, it does not make sense to reproduce the wheel.
Yes.
So is your module and the product actually could be somehow tweaked?
Translate. We have template files.
And still fitting an
Yes.
older person from another culture.
Create a bit of a new scope.
Yes. Well, there's a few things to say about that. First of all, when you're dealing with modern technology, the interfaces march on. So if you're trying to make a pragmatic set of materials that suit a certain thing, you know, the interface changes. There's a new version of the operating system and it looks different, slightly different. And that's going to be like off-putting then if you've got the old style and the new thing is there. The second thing is we did it for Google, and I'll just be blunt about it. We got zero engagement from Apple. Zero. We tried multiple times to connect with Apple. They just didn't even bother replying to us.
Wow.
We tried hard, right? Google were brilliant. Google were actually very, very good. Not only did they engage with us, but there's a place where if you've got material, you can send it to them and they will audit it to make sure that it fits their corporate
wonderful
thing. And there was a fast turnaround. It was 2 or 3 weeks. And we sent them quite a lot of material and they audited and looked and said, that's all okay. Or that slide is out of date. It doesn't reflect our corporate image now. Please change it, you know, we found that tremendously useful. And it took us a while to find that link, but when we did, it was great, really great. So, you know, if we took that material now and went back to them, they'd probably say, oh, that's starting to get a bit aged now, you know. So there's that need for keeping the material fresh. And that's something we agonized over, but there's no real easy answer to it, because if you've got a budget for a certain time, the budget is to develop the content at that snapshot. Do you want the same thing to apply in 5 years' time? Now you're going to have to refresh all your graphics. And that's time consuming.
Yeah.
That was one challenge. Another challenge that we had was finding real people to include in our imagery. So, you know, if you go to like, you know, any of the clip art or websites, you know, you're getting models in kind of perfect homes that are not real, not believable, right? So like I think there's a really interesting issue there across the world to make, you know, proper real humans in the depicted artwork for different things. And when it's age friendly, they need to be real, diverse, gender equal, racially equal, you know, all of those things are important when you're actually making your image set. If you then add the dimension that AI, coming back to the AI thing, if AI is auto-generating based on a biased photographic archive, it's going to create stuff that's very stereotypical.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were fighting against that stereotype thing all the time, not successfully in every case. And it was really a great experience for us. When we went into it, we were engineers, and guess what? The first versions of our pictures were white males and mostly models, right? You know, so like it took time to have that transition to say, hold on a second, we're not considering diversity here. So, you know, these are like, if you want people to relate to your material, those things are important. You need to have humans in your pictures, but they need to be people that the users can relate to, you know. So like that was a really interesting learning experience for us.
Yeah,
happy to talk about that for anyone who's interested in that, in doing something similar. I'd be happy to talk about that experience.
Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like, you know, it was a good timing to do this during COVID. You have nothing else to do.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's
it's okay because
it's probably why we overachieved, as we were sitting at home in your bedrooms doing nothing else.
Thanks a lot. You know, I will stay in touch. So if you could put I will go through the network, so I will find your email. So no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think we should give it back to Joše.
Damon, you might mute there.
Hi, Joše.
So from our side, I'm sitting in the same room as Damon, so hopefully he'll mute.
I have a major honor to thank to the Irish group to share with us what they are doing, what they have accomplished. And yes, they really deserve an appreciation for sharing with us. What you're telling us is too good to be kept as a secret of Ireland. It's so important to humans in general, and this is why we need to thank you very much. No. Second point I would like to say, there are not so many people that walk what they talk. You do. You walk what you talk. And about what you walk, you are willing to talk, which is wonderful. My final desire as the administrator of our network is, how can you help in making contacts with you and your effort and results open to not only our network, but to everybody who has interest in that. And there is a growing number of people who are engaging in elderly stage and will remain for us for a long time, so may very much need and appreciate what you are doing and what you can help. Finally, thank you very much, Paula. I came in touch with you reading your websites, and I was impressed what you are doing very practically at national level, involving so many users, researchers, libraries, agencies. You are good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much to everybody for participating. So it's really important to us that we get the message out there, both nationally and internationally. And I'd very much look forward to continuing the collaboration, and maybe we could share later in the project some more of our findings if you're interested in that. And we'd be certainly interested. I'll keep a close eye on what you're doing in the remaining sessions throughout the year, and maybe we could see, Jose, where we could fit in.
We would very much welcome, and this is basically the only thing we can do. It's no way that in Slovenia we'll try to copy and then sell our product. No, we can
collaboration would be nice, sir.
Let others know how good you are. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great.
Fully agree what Jose said. Thank you very much for taking time to share with us all the great work that you've developed.
Yeah, I just before leaving, I just wanted to mention that Ramon and I are also part of the global sort of NGO committee for the older persons within the UN structure. So if you have a 1 or 2 page of a description of your project and work, we'll be very happy to pass it on and to find a ways to be included in our next meeting's background material.
Lovely. And Alicia, could you put that into the chat, the network that you mentioned? And should I disseminate that information through our contact, Jose?
Both directions are very much welcome. Any direct message or information you can provide, what you will send to me will be included as a component of the program of today's meeting. So we'll be there, everybody can have a link to whatever you will propose. For example, what Heinz said, links to your articles so people can get them and read them.
Great.
Not only in Australia, also in Europe.
Okay, we'll do that.
We'll be happy.
Thanks very much.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Jose. Thanks, Alexander.